younger brother, Jabir, called to me from the window. "Aren't you supposed to be studying?" I asked, not even looking up from my sewing. My older sister, Sisa, was to be married in a month, and there was still much to be done. "Yes, but come see, the Israelites are coming." I dropped my sewing and ran to the window. Now I could hear the tramping of thousands of feet and the wailing of trumpets. When I looked out the window, I could see the Israelite army marching towards us. The men with the trumpets were in front, followed by several men carrying something on poles. Then came thousands of armed men, stretching into the distance back towards their camp. I could see why the whole city was afraid. My sister Rahab said that 2 of the men stayed at her house, and they were not scary at all. Perhaps if there were only 2, but they went on and on. My mother came running in from the bedroom. "Don't waste time staring out the window, you 2. Sisa is already packing. You would do well to join her." "Packing?" Jabir asked. He was only 6. To him there was only excitement. He knew no fear. Mother knelt and took him by the hands. "Yes, Jabir, we are going to Rahab's house, and we must pack everything we can carry. I am going to find your father and your brothers." She gave him a kiss on the top of his head, and then rose and turned to me. In a low voice she said, "If I am not back by sundown, or if fighting breaks out before I return, go to Rahab immediately. Take what you can carry, but it is more important that you reach her." I nodded. She kissed me on the head as well. Jabir ran into our bedroom to help Sisa pack, but I watched my mother leave, hoping she would be back in time. We packed quickly, stopping only for a quick dinner. The sound of the army outside was constant, and Jabir kept stopping his work to look out the window. When we had finished packing, Sisa made bread and listened to Jabir's lessons while I continued my sewing. Suddenly I noticed that the sound was nearly gone. I looked out the window and could barely make out the retreating army in the bright sunlight. "Sisa, they're leaving. What do you think it means?" "Am I a general that I can guess the thoughts of an army? I don't know." "Are we still going to Rahab's house?" "Again with the questions! I don't know. We'll have to wait for Mother." By the time she arrived, it was nearly sundown. Jabir ran for her as she walked in the door, followed by my father. "The soldiers are gone," Jabir said. "Are we still going to Rahab's house?" I asked. "Well, we might as well go," Father said, tousling Jabir's hair as Mother gave him a hug. "They may come back tomorrow, and you've already packed everything. Is supper ready?" he asked Sisa. It was. We ate quickly, and then Father loaded the heavier bundles onto the donkey. Then he and Mother and Sisa and I carried everything else, and Jabir led the donkey. When we arrived at Rahab's house, it was crowded and noisy. The house was large, and it was always full of people, but now in addition to the usual occupants, my 2 older brothers and their families were there, and we only added to the chaos. As soon as I set the bundles down, I ran to hold my brother's daughter. We settled in at Rahab's house. It was cramped, but it was nice to all be together, and there were enough other people that I wasn't bothered much about chores. No one was concerned any longer about Sisa's wedding. Every day the Israelites came and marched around the city wall, and every day they left. We were surrounded by noise, the noise of the marching army, the incessant blowing of the trumpets, and the guards on the wall hurling insults at the Israelites. On the 6th day, we were at Rahab's house. The noise seemed to go on forever. Long after dinner, the army was still marching around the city. My father and my brothers looked nervous, and there seemed to be more agitation than usual from the guards. Finally, we heard a long trumpet blast and a loud shout. It was so loud I had to cover my ears. The ground began to shake, and we huddled together in the middle of the room. "The roof will fall! We need to get out!" My brother Mepek shouted above the noise. "If you want to live, you will stay inside," Rahab shouted back. We stayed. Finally, the shaking stopped, and we could hear the shouts of the soldiers and the screams of the people. Mother covered Jabir's ears so he wouldn't hear. I covered my own. After a long time, there was a pounding on the door. We all hid in the storage room as Rahab opened the door. "It's all right," she called out after a minute. "It is the men who promised to protect us." Slowly, cautiously, we emerged. The men looked gruff, and their clothes were covered in blood, but they did not kill us. They helped us gather our things, and they led us safely out of Jericho, away from our homes. I held Cisa's hand tightly and looked at the ground. I wanted my last picture of Jericho to be peaceful, as it had been 6 days before. We set up a camp outside the camp of the Israelites. I focused on any task I could to block out the sounds of war. That night we slept fitfully, torn from our homes, the night lit by the city on fire and pierced by occasional screams. In the morning, the city was gone.